And the purpose of this activity is for you all to consider ways to include higher order thinking questions in your lesson plan, and additionally to find ways to provide different levels of questions, both with regards to cognitive demand, but also with regards to allowing different ways for kids to respond based on their English language proficiency. So the main question that Jane Hill and Kathleen Flynn address in this article is, can we create questions that are cognitively challenging, higher level in terms of thinking, but less demanding in terms of language output? Yes, we can. So they demonstrate in this article that by using Bloom's taxonomy and using our English language proficiency descriptors, for us that's can-do descriptors, we can also look at the descriptors that they provide in their article, and using those tools can help us brainstorm ideas for different question types. And one of the things that they point out in this article that I wanted to just highlight is how important questions are for learning. Teachers use a lot of questions as they teach, but as they point out in the article, they frequently ask lower level questions to English language learners, and that will not provide as many robust learning opportunities for those students. So that's why it's super important that even when kids don't have as much ability to express their learning verbally, that we can still think of ways to ask them questions that will allow them to respond physically, or using short word answers, or using drawing or other ways of responding. Okay, so what we're going to be doing today is developing questions at different levels of thinking using Bloom's taxonomy, as well as different levels of language demand. So here is one example. Are some seeds carried by the wind? That's a recall level question, and it only requires a yes or a no answer. And that's a fine question, but it doesn't really give students a lot of opportunity to think or analyze. So the question, which seeds might be more easily carried by the wind, is a higher order thinking question, and we could provide kids with actual seeds, and they could point to the ones that would be more easily carried, or they could sort them if we could provide pictures of seeds. And then for those students with more language ability, they can also tell us why they think so. And even kids that are still at the entering level can tell us why they think so, and use the words that they can, or they could use their L1 as well. My example, which I will provide for you on As You Learn in case you want to see, my example lesson relates to weathering and erosion. And so here on this chart, I just have different levels of question related to cognitive demand or cognitive skill or focus. So starting with remember and then all the way up to create. And so at the remember or understand side, it's sort of asking students to provide definitions or to recall things that they might have learned while we were doing a video or a class discussion, or in our case, we're doing a small experiment with different substances and adding water to those substances and shaking them and seeing which ones change and how they change. So a question like, which part of this picture shows erosion, is both more on the knowledge level, as well as it allows students at a lower language level to point and show me which part of the picture shows erosion. And then again, if I wanted a longer response, I might ask, why do you think so? Or tell me about that. For apply or analyze, I might ask for predictions. What do you think is going to happen when we add water to the sand and shake it? or which part of our experiment was an example of physical weathering. And then for create, the question is probably, you can't see it, it says which materials would you use to build a monument or statue. So after we do the experiment, they will have an idea of which materials are harder or softer or erode more easily, and hopefully kids would be able to come to a conclusion that we want to use more durable materials if we want to make an outdoor statue or monument. Now, so that slide showed the different levels of cognitive demand or cognitive level. On this slide, this is the chart that is provided on page 47 of the article and shows the different stages of language production, as well as the teacher prompts that we could utilize for those different stages. And then what you guys are going to be using, as per usual, is the WIDA can-do descriptors. So you want to have the WIDA can-do descriptors for speaking for the grade level that you're writing your lesson plan for, so that you can do this activity. So what you're going to do is just find the chart on As You Learn called Asking the Right Questions, and it's the blank version. I have one that has my examples on it. And then you're going to use the tables in the article, the tables that show the different concepts that are covered by Bloom's taxonomy and language functions that we can use and teacher prompts that we can use. And you want your can-dos for your grade level cluster for speaking, and you want your lesson proposal or your lesson plan that you're drafting. So you're at the top of the chart, you're going to put your clarifying objective and your language objectives related to speaking at the top of your chart. And then you're going to develop questions for each level of Bloom's taxonomy and for the different language proficiency levels that are related to A, your grade level, and B, your content and language objectives. Then you're going to submit that chart to me, and hopefully you will be able to utilize the questions you develop in your lesson plan where they are appropriate. So I'm going to quick show you the chart that I developed. Hold tight there. Okay, so here you can see my chart. My clarifying objective is right here. My language objectives, that I want them to describe substances using adjectives and report the results of their experiment, which was designed to investigate physical change. And then I have the different levels of question in each box. You can see that in some cases, like here, and for this one I used entering, emerging, developing, and expanding. The bridging level 5 is pretty much on par with grade level. So we don't necessarily, I didn't think it was as useful to come up with different questions for that level, but if you want, you can. You'll notice that some of my questions are the same because I thought that there wasn't, for the definition of weathering, there's not really a more challenging question that I could develop for expanding on this side. So in any case, give this a whirl, see what you can come up with, and try to, if you come up with an idea like of an activity or a statement, try to think about, okay, how would I state this as a question? All right, that is all. Thank you for paying attention, and I look forward to seeing your work.